What you're looking at here is the ARM-1. This is my asteroid recovery vessel. It is currently connected to an asteroid that it did manage to wrangle and get into an orbit of the moon, an asteroid that has been featured the last couple of weeks as I was, well, not attempting, I succeeded in connecting a docking hub to that particular asteroid. But I also had a contract to have 3 tourists visit an asteroid, and I took tourists out there only to discover I hadn't looked well enough at the fine print where it says here that said asteroid has to be in Kerbin's orbit above an altitude of 75 kilometers. Unfortunately, we are in orbit about the moon, so this contract never got did get satisfied. So that's one thing that was a little bit of a disappointment. The other thing is that asteroid, I just put it in orbit around the moon without really thinking about it, and it is in a very awkward orbit for a space station. I would much rather put it in a polar orbit. So that's really what this is going to be about, is eventually getting that asteroid into a polar orbit so it'll form a good platform upon which to make a moon station. But in order to do that, I need to push it around, and the ARM-1 that's currently on the asteroid is pretty much devoid of fuel. So what I want to do is bring up a whole ton of fuel. And then that got me thinking, why not try and kill 2 birds with 1 stone? I mean, switching from its current, it's almost a pure equatorial retrograde orbit, switching that to a polar orbit isn't going to be cheap. And in terms of the amount of fuel that you're going to use, it might not cost that different to actually leave the moon's SOI, enter Kerbin's orbit, maybe in a great big elliptical orbit that still intersects the moon's orbit, bring up a stack of Kerbals, and rendezvous with that asteroid in that orbit, satisfy this contract with these 3 tourists, and then go back into the moon's SOI and put it into the orbit in which I want to. I honestly don't think that would be that much more. I never worked it out, but I think it's in the same order of magnitude anyway in terms of fuel costs to do the two. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to build a fuel module to take up a ton of fuel. We're going to take the asteroid out of the moon's orbit, put it into Kerbin's orbit. We're going to send up a stack of Kerbals. Also, this will, by the way, get us a pile of science because I can do an asteroid sample in high space around Kerbin, and we'll put it in a nice elliptical orbit so it'll actually enter into low space too. We'll do an asteroid sample in low space, so we'll get some science, we'll satisfy some tourists, and we'll finally, hopefully, get that asteroid into a polar orbit. So that's a lot. We'll see how it goes, but what I need to do, and this is why we're in the VAB, is I need to build myself a vessel that can fuel this thing back up. Now, this thing has a ton of delta V, like it's 8.6 kilometers per second of delta V. It is a pretty mammoth vessel. It holds 7,760 units of liquid fuel, and I thought, you know what, I should just build something that is capable of filling this thing entirely. I mean, why not? If we're going to bring up a bunch of fuel, why not fill this thing entirely? And then if I ever in the future wanted to head off and wrestle another asteroid and bring that back into the area as well, I would have a fully fueled vehicle pretty much ready to go, or at least close to it. So what I want to do right now is build me a fuel barge that holds 7,760 units of liquid fuel. So why don't we get started? So I'm going to not save this. We're going to go new, and we're going to start with our Probodobodyne probe core, but a lot smaller. And actually, before I get started, last week, you may have noticed I put out a poll. This is the 9th episode in this season. I always take these live streams and split them into 9-episode seasons. I just got started doing that. It seems to be a nice way of chunking them up. And this is the 9th one, so that closes off this particular season or series, depending upon which side of the Atlantic you live on. And I thought, well, that's time for me to go on to something new. So I could go on to the next series that would follow right after this of these Kerbalism live streams, or something I've been having cooking in the back of my mind is a new tutorial series. So I put it to a YouTube poll, and the tutorial series won in that poll pretty close on a ratio of 2 to 1 in terms of votes go. So it won rather handily. So after this Monday stream, next Monday is going to be a brand new tutorial series, which is basically going to be all about career mode and doing all of those different contracts that come up in career mode. So that's what's going to be happening next Monday, and that will be each Monday for the next 2 or 3 months doing that, and then I'll get back to this again. Okay, the Thursday live streams will continue on per normal. And actually, while I'm in this whole thing of just doing announcements, I do want to thank, as always, my Patreon patrons and YouTube members who continue to support this channel. And if you want to support this channel, the links are down there in the description. And I want to particularly mention my newest YouTube member, Zombinus, who just added on just this week. Okay, so with that, let's get ourselves started. Let's get rid of this contract, and we'll start building some stuff here. So this is obviously just going to be a little probe body. I do need to bring up some monopropellant, so I'm just going to bring up the small, is that the smallest one? RCS tank? Yeah, it is. Just looks really big. So we're going to do that. I want to put on some reaction wheels. Actually, why don't I put it, yeah, let's do it this way around. That way, that way. I also want to put on, before I forget, a KOS scriptable control system and put in the boot file and step up the space so it can hold the software that it needs. This is going to be really, really simple. This is just the core part. It's going to have a sort of a little pusher, as it were. And then what I want to do is put on some solar panels. Oh, a battery would be a good idea. Let's get a battery. I think this one's too, yeah, that one. And then we'll put on a bunch of solar panels. And this isn't going to be doing a whole lot, so a handful of aux-sats. Right away, just rotate them the wrong way, why don't you? Eventually I'll get it. 6-way symmetry. There, that's about that. Okay, and then what we'll do, here, I'm going to put on a fairing because I'm going to enclose this. There's really 2 different ways because I'm going to eventually go 2.5 meter parts. And there's a couple of ways to deal with that. One is, if I go to payload, is to use a 2.5 meter service bay. It doesn't quite fit in there, but, you know, that's, yeah, pretty close. I could do that. But, you know, these things, they ain't light. These service... I mean, how much is this? This thing's 300 kilograms. And sometimes it's nice. You can also just simply put a fairing on the bottom of this and then enclose it all. Now, if you want, you can put on the interstage nodes. These are really handy. And then I can take something like a docking port. Where's my big docking port? This one. And you can do that right there. And so, like, there you have something, you know, once I put some motors on it and stuff, I can dock onto something and push it around. But I got into testing. I've already built this once, and I'm building it now for the second time. That for whatever reason, when I staged the fairing, this would disconnect and it would be catastrophe during my ascent. So I kind of gave, I never did identify why that was happening. I was trying different ways of configuring it where this would always just disconnect from there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to disable the interstage nodes. I'm going to put on, let me go into structure here, a adapter like that. I'm going to put that on. That's it. We'll change that to that so it looks a little more, I don't know, industrial-like, and we'll put some struts in there. 4-way symmetry seems like a good plan. I'm on 6-way symmetry. That's probably too much. Do that. 4-way symmetry. I am, again, with my fingers in the bad spots. There we go. Oh my gosh, why is this being like this? There we go. That's not so hard, was it? And see there, you got a nice little something. Again, once I put some motors on it that can hook onto things. We'll stick some lights inside here. Like that. It's nice to sort of light up the inside. Let's see, pitch angle. Yeah, pitch them down like that. I can light that up in there. Change your colors to gray. There we go. Okay, so this is just sort of a little pusher vehicle. We'll pretty this up. I'm going to need an antenna before I forget. I do have a checklist, so if there are things I'm forgetting, hopefully I'll remember at some point. Is that going to stay? That'll be inside the fairing. Sure, why not? That'll work. Put it up here. Oh. There we go. And okay, now let's put our actual chunk of fuel that's going to go on this. So, again, I need 7,760 units of fuel, and my biggest fuel tank still is the Rockomax Jumbo 64 fuel tank, one of these fellas. Now, I do have edit tanks, the button here. This comes from the mod Tank Configurator. Right now this is liquid fuel and oxidizer. I don't need the oxidizer. Now can I max this out? Full. I think that's done. Let's take that right out. Let's go here, liquid chemicals. Oh, that's that. Max. Add. There we go. Liquid fuel. So how many is that? That is 1,000. I don't think that's maxed out yet. No. There we go. 6,400 units of liquid fuel right there. And then on top of that, I'm going to put, I think it is, yeah, one of these fellas here. We'll do the same trick. We're going to edit this tank. Let's just do all of this out. It was 700. I think it helps to do it. What? I don't know. Let's see. Max. Add. Full. There it goes. And that's another 1,600 units there. And I think that is how many units of liquid fuel? That's 8,000 units of liquid fuel. So that's got me happy there. Let's see. We'll color these a little grayish. There we go. And on top of that is going to go another docking port. Because that's got to dock onto something else. So there we go. Let's actually take out, or not take out, but turn off this fuel. So I don't want it, this is payload. I don't want this in the calculations. But yeah, basically, okay, so now what I got to do is I got to push all this to the moon. And I figure in and around 1,140 meters per second to go from low Kerbal orbit out to the moon, get a capture, rendezvous with my asteroid. So I gotta put on the bottom of this, let me see what I think is gonna work here. Let's start with this guy, and let's put a poodle on the bottom. Let's see, whoops, what that does for me. That is only 704. Okay, I need a bigger one than that, don't I? I did make notes to myself. This is a 16. No, I need much bigger than that. I also need this fella. This is going to be a big one. There we go. That's 1,313 meters per second. That's more than enough. It can finish off the top part of the insertion for me as well. Let's again change. I like with the Poodle engine, I like this sort of a setup. We'll make them all gray again. I'm in a gray mood. Gray mood. There we go. Nope, nope, nope. That's good. Okay. So that is getting to be like our vehicle that I want to have heading out towards the moon. RCS. It does need to be able to maneuver, so we're going to put on, where are the bigger RCS thrusters? These guys. Yeah, these ones. We'll put, let me think. Let's just slap 4 down here, and then another 4 up here. Where's the center of mass? You definitely want to get these sort of. Let's move these ones down. We'll open up RCS build aid, another mod. The really handy thing that this is giving us is the amount of torque that we're generating, because the center of thrust of the RCS blocks is off from the center of mass. So what I can just do is take these and just move them down. That's increasing the torque, going up. I guess that red thing isn't the center of thrust. Oh, that looks great. Tiny little torque, and that should be the same no matter which way. Yep. Alright, cool. There we go. Okay, yeah, I gotta still figure out that tank configurator. I know I wasn't doing it in the most efficient way, but I'm thinking, I don't think this is missing anything. So let's get this ready. This is going to be the OHC, because that's the name of the asteroid fuel barge. So save this. We're gonna stick this into orbit. Now this has a mass of 75, almost 76 tons, which is a record. This is the heaviest thing I've tried to lift into orbit as of yet. And one of the things that's really tempting to do, like if I go to my pre-made boosters, if I take a look here, I'll arrange these by mass. These are all boosters I've used in the past, and then I save them. Here is the biggest one I have. It can do, and it's not terrible. And I got started by kind of doing something in the same vein as this. But you know, I've got bigger, better engines since then. So what I thought I would do is build something from scratch that would look a little better. So we're gonna need this to be taller. Okay, let's get this thing ready for, we're going to build this fairing. Let's get right in there. Close the fairing. Let's see, 4 size. Up the ejection force. Clamshell deploy. That should be good. Okay. Also, up at the top here, this obviously is not very aerodynamic. So what I think I'm going to do is very simply grab me one of the bigger nose cones. There it is. Put that right on there. Does that have some different? Yeah, it can't go gray. Okay, we'll do that. And then I'm going to put on a a pair of separatrons. So the you know, once we get to a certain altitude, 2 will certainly suffice. We'll disconnect this and fire off these separatrons using an action group, and this will go sailing off away from us. Okay, so let's see, C. Just want to kind of tuck these in a little bit. Local, like that. That looks okay. I think so. Yeah, just leave it like that. That's good. And I don't think, I'm definitely not going to need a lot of fuel. Probably not. Well, actually, you know what I should do? I know what I should do. Is why not just remove the symmetry, reduce this throttle like that, and leave that one the same. And then hopefully this will go off to one side. We'll see how this works. We'll see how this works. Oh, and then while I'm thinking about it, action groups. 5 is always what I use for fairing deploy. So on 5, what we're going to do is we're going to deploy that fairing. We're going to decouple or undock that, and we're going to fire off these separatrons. Activate engine. Activate engine. We'll see how that works. We'll definitely do a little bit of testing. How more silver can it be? None more. I'm just, you see that silver? This feels, okay, maybe. Yeah, silver or gray. I'm going gray. All right, let's build something under this. So let's build ourselves a core booster here. So I'm going to get myself a decoupler. This is, where is the big one? Is it this one? No. That one, the TD. Nope. I can get it eventually. Oh my gosh. There we go. We got a winner. There it is. Underneath that, we're going to put a one of these tanks, and then a oh, that is not the Jumbo 64 one. So what I'm shooting for typically with a upper stage like this is going to take on some boosters as well, is something in around the 1100 meter per second range, and something with a thrust to weight ratio in and around 1, maybe a little more than 1. And I think what ended up working well for me was sticking a mainsail under that. This is not a light vehicle. Yeah, I think that's working. So a thrust to weight of 1.12 and about 1300 meters per second of delta V there. So that's pretty good. Let me check the staging. Make sure that's not doing anything weird. I'll take this out of the staging altogether. I don't want to see that. And these are the two that are up here at the top, right there. Okay. So that's pretty good. I'm looking for, if I take my 1,140 meters per second for getting to the moon, getting to the asteroid, and another about 3,500 meters. This is, look how tall this is. I love this. Another 3,500 meters per second for getting into orbit. Total budget of around 4,640. So what I'm going to do now is start to put on some radial boosters onto this. So where are decouplers? We'll get a pair of these guys. Put that on snap. And I know this is going to need some oomph-itude. And my most powerful engine that I have is the twin bores still. I got to start unlocking some bigger engines, but this is still my best and most powerful. Slide these down a bit. That's my most powerful option when it comes to and the twin bores are great. They're very versatile. The thing I dislike about them the most is there are no alternate textures for them. They're just exactly what you see, and that is about it. We're going to fire all these engines off at the same time at launch, and we're going to use some asparagus staging so that these boosters will be feeding this tank. So, you know, we'll drain these radial boosters first, and then we'll stage those, and this center core will still be full thanks to those fuel lines that I just put in there. Okay, and then on top of that, we're going to put, again, another pair of Jumbo 64s. And what I got to watch here is my launch thrust to weight ratio. I can't let that get below about 1.33. I'm seeing in the reaction wheels. I don't think this thing's gonna need. There's reaction wheels tucked up here. I don't think it needs anything else. I think otherwise, I think this thing's gonna be fine. There's gimbling on all these engines. Not gonna be an issue. So what I want to do is add fuel. I want to get over 4,640 meters per second of delta V, but with a thrust to weight under 1.33. And if I can't do that with the stack that I'm making now, I'm gonna have to put on more radial boosters. So I believe what I did next while playing around is I put on a pair of these fellas. We're getting closer, still quite a lot of thrust, and then I put on a pair of these fellas like that, and then I put on these slanty ones. I love these slanty ones for radial boosters, and then you have the slanty nose cones that go right on top of that, like so. And that gives me a total delta V. Oh wait, I'm in Atmos still, sorry. Total delta V of 4,767. I'm not counting the very top because that's just the nose cone taking off. And a thrust to weight still low enough, so this should be getting the job done. So what I want to do is let's get some more We'll start playing with the color scheme here a little bit. I don't know if there's much I can do with the tops, unfortunately. No. I can make... the black looks funnier. Let's just go with that. Yep. And we'll make this white. And then again, there's nothing I can do with that. Let's slide these down a little further. We're going to definitely have to do some strutting up. This is going to be a wobbly catastrophe if I launched it the way it is right now. Yeah, let's get these grays to line up here. That'll look okay. See how these gray tanks here all line up? That looks good. Okay, I also am going to need to help with separation. Some separatrons. Just a pair. I'm going to line them up right with this line so I can do them the same on both sides. So a pair here. A pair here, pointing the other way. And I have two-way symmetry, so they're popping on the other side as well. And then we will, let's see here. Let's grab it again. Hold, or take off, sorry. Take off the snap here. Oh no, put the snap back on. But hold shift, there's what I'm trying to do. And 1, 2, 3, 4. Plus 1, 2, 3, 4. Tilt them down, and then just do this one with the same thing here. 1, 2, 3, 4. That should work. Those should be close enough to being paired off. Now, where did they put them? Way down here at the bottom. They got to go here. So all three of these engines go off at the bottom. Then we stage. These separatrons go. We'll put this to a test. Don't you worry about that. And then we're on to this core. This should do it. This should be it. Oh, I want a smart part. The Drain X. That's the one. This is a smart part which detects, you've got smart parts that can detect all kinds of things, but this one detects when we run out of liquid fuel. When we run out of liquid fuel, it'll stage. So it should stage for us automatically, and similarly, we'll put one of those on this stage down here. Okay. Struts. Struts. So, one thing I noticed upon testing with this is this joint right here, although the oh, hang on, I realized what I did wrong. Whoa, dear. I just simply put a tank right on top of that. I want another docking port. That was silly. I want another docking port and then that on top of that so that this can detach and there'll still be a 2.5 meter docking port here so that we can still... But this joint here, even though the 2.5 meter docking ports are really solid compared to these smaller docking ports, I mean, they're still docking ports. So to stiffen this up, what I found and I needed to do was just to strut like this, a little couple like that. Let's make them white. Yeah, and a couple this way. And then while we're at it with these struts. Actually, the bottom might be okay. Okay, we'll give it a go. We'll see what happens. Well, again, we're going to test this. So, how are we doing? Delta V is still solid. Whoops, that's not what I meant to do. And launch thrust to weight is still more than what I need. The mid-stage thrust to weight, a little over 1 is... Oh, that's an Atmo. It's even higher. That's good. Good. Launch clamps. Launch clamp here. Launch clamps here. Put them on their own. Put the engines first and then the launch clamps second. That should be good. Let's hit the save button. Let's go down my checklist. This is a probe. It's uncrewed. Fine print, there are no contracts associated with this, so that's cool. Control should be okay. We got reaction wheels up at the top. I mean, it's hardly going to be nippy. There's RCS. Gimbaled engines. The Poodle itself is gimbaled. Should be fine. KOS I've done. Probe configured. Good call. That's why I have the checklist. There's no science this thing needs to do, so if we can find that probe body, there we are, and configure the experiments. We don't want to do any experiments. That saves a little bit of weight, a little bit of money. There we go. There's no science to do. Power generation should be fine. It just has to run communications. Electrical storage is fine. The one battery will be fine. Antenna strength and speed, again, it's just for communications, doesn't matter. Data storage is fine. Propulsion is fine. RCS and propellant, I did that. Parachutes aren't necessary. Thermal protections aren't. Lights! Lights, lights, lights. Gotta get lights. Okay, so I lit up kind of the inside bit of this. So I think that should be okay. Let's take some of our little... Will these dome lights be too big? Oh, they kind of feel funny in the textures. Dome lights might be good. Well, they kind of disappear in the texture around the... It'd look better if I do that. Well, we'll see here. Let's grab... Just pull them out a bit so they're not buried in the texture. And I could use... I'm going to try using these little dome lights. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make them kind of amber lights. Let's sneak them into the orange a little bit. Actually, hang on a bit. Here, red, yellow. Go that way. Tilt to the orange, put the blink on, and we'll have them blink every second's cool. That should be fine. Just for some blinky lights. Same thing about here. Just trying to picture this attached to the actual station. Do I want to put more lights than that? You know what? I think I'm going to leave it at that. I think that should be good. Okay, I think that should be good. All right, that's all I'm going to do for lighting. I don't think it needs anything else. Lights, upgrades. Yep, I think. Okay, let's look at the Poodle. Poodle engine's going to have to do a lot of work, but it is kind of designed for that. If I look under the reliability, it can do 14 ignitions and run for 5 minutes and 50 seconds. And if I go to high, do I really need it on high? I think 14 should be fine. I think so. We'll keep. It's just got, once it's rendezvoused with the asteroid, then we don't need that anymore. This engine here is probably going to light twice. This mainsail, and the mainsail I know is only designed to light once, so I definitely want to up the standard on that one. So now it can light twice. That does add a bit of weight, but our thrust to weight, our delta V, total delta V is still good. Total delta V is fine. Oh wait, where'd this engine? Oh my gosh, what's going on here? What are you doing to me? This and this. There we go. Yeah, total delta V is fine. Okay, so I think the upgrades are good. Thrust weights. Yeah, a little bit high on the bottom. So we're going to grab this guy, the twin bore, and we're just going to tweak this down. I like a thrust to weight at launch of about 1.33. I get too particular about that, but it's good to. Fairing deploy, I think, is all taken care of on action group 5. We should be popping this fairing, releasing the nose cone, and then firing the 2 Separatrons. Let's put on action group 0 deployment of the 1 antenna. 0 happens when we get into space. Extend that antenna. Actually, here, take that off. Toggle the antenna. That's good. Okay. And staging. Check. Well, staging is always allowed. I think this is good. I think this is good. Let's take off the checklist. So there it is. It ain't small. Time to put this to a test. So we're going to do a test. Make sure this works. So we're going to run our KRASH simulator. And we'll just simulate this on the launch pad. We'll see how it goes. Okay, so let's just get a nice view of this thing. Let's see how this goes. So we're not going to go all the way up. We'll just make sure that it works. There isn't something obvious that I have overlooked. So we'll get our launch script going here. I do like it. I like the scale of it. Oh, it's a little wonky. It's a little wonky. I might need to... it's right here. See that joint? I think I need some more struts to stiffen the whole big job up. Yeah, this is not acceptable. Okay, let's try this again. So restart the simulation. Or no, terminate the simulation. More struts. So as I think I mentioned, I did build this between the streams. To be honest, it was over a week ago I built this, so that's why it's a little bit hazy in my mind. And I gave myself... I printed off an image of it and wrote some notes on that image. So rather than building everything from scratch, I'm hoping that this will save us a little bit of time. So maybe some struts down here. Will that be good enough? It was wonky here. Maybe below here too. Heck, like struts, you can't go wrong with struts. Just to sort of, I think just kind of hold this whole stack together, I think is really what the issue is. Okay. Delta V still fine. Thrust to weight still fine. Those added struts didn't make too much of a difference. Okay, let's start again. Auto strut. Yeah, I could do some auto strutting. You're right. KSP has some pretty strange... the engineers in the Kerbal Space Center have some pretty weird ideas about welding, I think. Okay, run, launch, 0 AN. Let's go. Okay. Again, we're really watching that wobble. Hopefully it is... Oh, it definitely, I think, looks steeper. Let's see once it starts to pitch over. Or stiffer. Oh, yes. I think that's looking much better. Much better. Of course, we're getting that glorious engine sound coming from the waterfall mod, as well as the plumes coming off the engines there. Yeah, I agree. John, it's mentioned in the chat. John mentions that what auto strutting should do is just add a little bit extra mass and a little bit of extra cost, so that it's not a free thing. I agree completely. I think so. But these struts don't add a whole lot of cost and mass either, so especially with bigger rockets, they don't. You know, compared to the mass of this whole rocket, the mass of these little struts are pretty pitiful. Are the fuel tanks? Yeah, these middle ones are all staying full, which is exactly what they should be doing. Instead, we're draining on these outside tanks. And what happened there? I don't know what happened. Okay, we are... Okay, so, like, for some reason... Whoa, dear! We have some out-of-control boosters. So clearly those separated before they were empty. That's interesting. Okay, let's terminate this simulation. Yeah, I'm getting some asks in the comments about STO. I do have some SSTO videos. I'm not a master of them as well. Like, they just take practice. So stiffness was fine. It was, I'm going to go to this mainsail and I'm going to put on the fuel delivery overlay. Right? So this is showing how all the fuel is being fed. And in particular, what I want to take a look at, P40, P40, P40. Are these numbers here? P40. Because I think the top tank drained before... drain first. What about these tanks? These are 20. See, the flow priority is 20, but the top ones here are 40. Definitely 40. So what it did is it drained all of these tanks before draining the tanks here. Why? I have no idea. Why would it do that? So that should be, they should all be the same number. So this should be a 40. So it drains all of these the same, and then let's make sure all these middle ones are the same. 10, 10, 10. Okay. That was that. So that makes sense. What happened there is it drained all of these upper tanks, and here's where the smart part is. First, and then stay. Okay. Always, no matter how much you get ready, there's always, ahead of time, there's always bugs. Always little kinks that you have to work out. Okay, going again. Try number 3. Okay, third time's the charm. This is the one. So it should be draining that tank, this tank, this tank, this tank. There's a lot of tanks on these boosters, and these, all of these should be draining now, and they all are. So that should be good. So what is the end goal of the asteroid station? The end goal of the asteroid station is to have a station in orbit around the moon that will have a lander attached to it, fuel reserves, science labs, and whatever other things might generate science, so that we can start to really exploit the science down on the moon. So it's meant to be a base for launching moon missions from. That's the idea of this space station. So that I can put a lander on it, lander go down, collect a pile of science, come back up, or fulfill some contracts, or whatever the case might be. Okay. Again, looking good so far, but hopefully we won't have that same staging mishap. Oh, it just cut thrust, which it does once it's into the upper part of the atmosphere. Once, I think it's over 20 kilometers, it does that. Okay, I don't think I got the same problem here. Nope, should be good. So, a little bit before. Yeah, we'll be losing these boosters before we stage. Okay, about to lose the Radial Boosters. And there we go. Wonderful. Good stuff, good stuff. Looking good, looking good. Core stage is flying well. Locking onto prograde vector. Next event is going to be at 50 kilometers, where we get fairing stage and this nose cone. I kind of really want to watch this nose cone tear off. I'm hoping it kind of it'll spiral around, but I'm hoping it kind of spirals off to the side. That's the idea here. So again, that's going to happen at, it should happen at 50 kilometer altitude. So there we go. That's it. That's exactly the idea. Off it goes to the side. That's great. Okay, that worked great. That worked wonderful. Okay, so now we got a very blunt blunt rocket here. And notice we've now lost, for those people that were a little bit concerned about, we've now lost all strutting on these, right? This is now just 2 docking ports connected together. It seems to be okay. And I mean, it's under more thrust right now than it'll ever be once it's actually in space. Back up here. Alright, so what are we at here? It's not quite 50, yeah. 59 kilometers. Still got quite a bit of burning to do here. Just nerf the sound, I think. I think that's waterfall. Suddenly quieter because the air is thinner. I think it's pretty neat. Alright, alright, alright. Okay, so reached our target apoapsis. Let's just... To be honest, I kind of wish I had a little more thrust. Maybe I shouldn't... Yeah, whatever. I don't want to get into tweaking the launch script. Maybe put a little bit more thrust on the bottom. I think it's a little too... Like I'm... Yeah. Eventually we'll get into space, and then we'll get an idea of what's going on here. I think I might put a little more thrust on the lower stage here so that it's doesn't... It's not quite this shallow, but the actual orbit to circuit... What's our periapsis at? Like, our periapsis is 42 kilometers in the positive, so this will be a nothing burn. Maybe I should just leave it. Leave well enough alone. Okay, here we go. Alright, so it's setting up a 33 meter per second burn to complete its circularization. I'm noticing, and I noticed this on testing as well, and I'm not sure what the deal is here. Notice how it's not... It is not, says here, locking attitude to the burn vector. It's not moving. You see that? It's not even trying to get to the burn vector, which I noticed that on testing between streams. Here, let me abort the program. But if I run my Xman script, which is basically the exact same script as the second half of the launch, and do that, yet still not going onto the burn vector. Isn't that interesting? I'm not sure what that's about, but it can, just to show you, if I put on SAS, oh, here, SAS, and move it over. It isn't nimble. I'm not going to argue with that. Some more reaction wheels might not be terrible, but it wasn't even trying to pitch over before. So I think I'm going to have to do the actual, this bit of it, manually. Either way, I think it's good enough. Let's abort. Let's do this for real.